we desperately need more children. And it's never been more difficult for families to have more children. It's not just cruel, it's stupid to discourage families from having children in a country where the birth rate is now in negative territory. 1.7 children per family is the average. Do the maths, as the Americans say. That's a declining population, the steepest decline of any G7 country, in a country that doesn't want immigrants. So we don't want to have our own children, can't afford to have our own children, and we don't want people coming from other countries. Again, do the maths. Who's going to wipe your nose in that old people's home, to which some of you are doomed? I'm not, actually. My family will look after me, but some of you may end up needing your nose wiped by a worker who simply won't be here. Some of you will be dependent on a national health service, dependent on tax, dependent on a tax base, with fewer and fewer people paying tax. So we would have liked very much to have spent the last 12 months talking about issues like that, like the collapse of the steel industry, like the fact that our manufacturing capacity, British-owned manufacturing capacity, is virtually now extinct. I was looking at a list of prime British companies today, from Rolls-Royce to Costa Coffee. None of them are owned in Britain. So all of their profits are going abroad, and virtually none of their tax is being paid here, because they've all badged themselves somewhere else, in a tax haven somewhere. So these domestic economic issues and the social and cultural issues that inevitably accompany them, like the crime we were driving past the school down the road there, where an acid attack on 2 school children took place just a couple of weeks ago. We go a lot to Goulburn Road, where there was tape just at the end of the summer there. Couldn't go into the park because a young boy had been shot dead there just hours before. These issues of crime, of degeneration, the degeneracy in our society as a whole, we would have loved to have been talking more, indeed, virtually exclusively on these things. But something happened last night that made me less embarrassed about what we have been talking about. Most of you will have seen it. Some of you may not have been able to watch it. The video last night of patients in the Al-Aqsa Martyrs Hospital, still attached to their IV fluid tubes, being literally burned alive by an Israeli bombing raid on a hospital, on tents, people on fire in tents. And because this is happening, we have no alternative but to expend the words and activities that we do on this question, because there is no bigger issue than genocide. I know there are tens of millions of people in Britain who don't care about it. I know that. But we care about it, and we have to care about it, and we have to speak about it. And I know that there are some in the party who would like me to be speaking less about it. But I can't. I can't for a variety of reasons. First of all, if you had been told in 1940 that you were over-focusing on a Holocaust going on in Nazi-occupied Europe, you either would have been like most of the politicians at that time, saying, I don't actually care about it, in which case you would be damned forever and damned in history for turning away from the systematic genocidal mass murder of a group of people for no other reason than who they are, what they are. That's what a genocide is. It is the systematic wiping out of people for no other reason, not for anything that they have done, but because of who they are. Now, there were many politicians who said nothing, did nothing about the Holocaust, said nothing, did nothing, slammed their doors shut on the people escaping that Holocaust. In the United States in 1941, only 3,000 Jewish refugees were allowed into the United States. I don't know the number for Britain, but we allowed a trainload of children to come in, and we've been living on it ever since. But we refused to let their parents come in, these kinder transports, slamming the door shut, turning away, remaining struck dumb on a genocide. These people who did that are surely damned on the judgment day, but they're damned in history also. So I'm not able to make an apology to you for spending so much time talking about the situation in Gaza, in the West Bank, and now in Lebanon. The place through which I entered the Arab world all these decades, almost 50 years ago. We just were in Sur restaurant for a cup of tea before coming across here, looking at a picture of an ancient, precious jewel of the Orient, the town of Sur, which is right now under bombardment. Baalbek under bombardment. Beirut under bombardment, yet again. My daughter will be here shortly. She was born in 1982. I had to flee Beirut in 1982 when Israel invaded. I had to rush from a mass demonstration in Hyde Park in London in 1982, August the 1st. I rushed back to Scotland for her birth. And now she's a mother of 5. And Beirut is still being bombed. And bombed by the same people, dropping the same bombs, paid for by the same countries, and protected by the same governments in the international arena. And of course, the international situation may be about to get very much bleaker still. If Israel were to attack Iran in the next hours, days, then Iran will respond with overwhelming force. They have repeated this over and over again. And if Iran responds with overwhelming force, perhaps 10 times, perhaps 100 times greater than their previous attack, both figures have been mentioned in Tehran, then Israel will be destroyed and America will have to get involved, and almost certainly will. And if America gets involved, you've got a war between America and Iran. Iran's friends, Russia and China, are unlikely to stand by. So this may be the last meeting of the Workers' Party in London or anywhere else. You see my point? It's impossible to avoid these international questions. It would be like refusing to mention a giant elephant in the back of the room. There is no way of avoiding it, and no way, therefore, of getting entirely back on track. But of course, we do what we can, and especially in election contests, we must try harder to do what we can to talk about the domestic concerns of our own people, whilst never losing the moral authority that we have as the main party standing up against war, against NATO, against Zionism and Israel. We have a unique position. Nobody else has our position. Labour is actively supporting the genocide, so are the Conservatives, so are the Liberal Democrats, and so actually are the Greens. They want a ceasefire, but that's where it ends. The Green Party in government, however, in Germany, is up to its neck in blood, supplying weapons, clubbing demonstrators on the streets of Germany, making it illegal to wear a Palestinian t-shirt. Everything my children are wearing this evening would have them arrested in Germany. There are more Israeli flags in Germany than there are in Israel. On every public building there's an Israeli flag. And the Greens, through their foreign minister and leader Anna Baerbock, are up to their neck in that slaughter. So we're the only people who support one state from the river to the sea. We're the only people who call for full boycott, divestment, sanctions against Israel, to make Israel an international pariah, to expel it from the United Nations, from the football authorities, from all international fora. We are the only people who stand for that. And it's right to stand for that. And I am proud of it. Having said all of which, we sit here in the territory where we had high hopes of doing extremely well in the local government by-election here just a couple of weeks ago. We did okay. We came third. We beat the Conservatives. We beat the Liberal Democrats. We did not beat the Greens. In Coventry last Thursday, again we came third. We beat the Conservatives. We beat the Liberal Democrats. And we beat the Greens. These are two outstanding results. But we also had very bad results in London, in your region. And you need to work out and tell me why, because I can't tell you why. You need to tell me why the Ealing results, for example, were so dismal, embarrassingly dismal. We've got two important by-elections coming up where we're hopeful that we'll do very well indeed. One of them is in Crawley, where I have already spoken, where a Palestinian member of ours, Linda Bamier, is our candidate. She stood in the general election in Crawley as a whole and got over 5% of the vote. And I would say that her campaign is an exemplar of what can and should be done. I've been down there. We had a fantastic rally in a Turkish restaurant, packed to the doors. And she has a great team working for her. Hawes knows better than me. Maybe he'll supplement what I have said. But we're very hopeful that third is the worst we'll do in Crawley, and we may even do much better than that. And the other candidate, Mamuna, is our candidate in Middlesbrough. She's a very interesting character, former policewoman, a former army officer, a Muslim, standing for us there. She also stood at the general election and did well there, and she's standing in a by-election. Both of these by-elections are coming up in the next week, 10 days, and so watch the results there closely. We want to get everyone properly structured, and this is a very handsome turnout now, better than I expected on this cold night, but we need a structure that doesn't require you to require hard-pressed people in Birmingham to send letters to people in London telling them that I'm speaking at a meeting in London. You need to be able to do that yourselves. You need to have a structure and a secretariat that enables you to do that yourselves. And we need as many electoral contests as we can fit in areas where we have people who actually do the campaign. There's no point in standing in a ward where we have no presence anywhere nearby. But where we can, we should. And the more times people vote for us, I met a guy who said, I always vote for the Workers' Party. It gladdened my heart because I didn't think we'd fought in enough elections that someone could say that. But we need people to say that they always vote for us. That means they must always have the opportunity to vote for us. We must be on every ballot paper that we possibly can be. Now, I don't know, because I no longer know the London electoral cycle. I don't know if there are any elections in London next May. Pause is indicating not. But there will be elections nearby London and, of course, up and down the country. And we will be seriously fighting those elections where we can. We don't know, this might sound ridiculous, with a Labour government with a majority of 170, we don't know how long Keir Starmer is going to last. He's already the most unpopular Prime Minister after 100 days in all of British history. If you think about it, that's saying something. That means he's more unpopular than Liz Truss. He's more unpopular than Rishi Sunak, than John Major. This is serious levels of unpopularity. So there's a lot of instability at Westminster. The Conservatives are winning practically every by-election that they fight in areas where Labour took the parliamentary seats from them. The fight back has begun. The Tories are about to appoint one lunatic or another as their leader. But the media will soon get behind that lunatic and dress them up as if they were Einstein. Yeah. And so the Tories are back. But the big electoral danger, but also plus for us, is that Reform are now eating Labour votes just as hungrily as they were eating Conservative votes in the recent past. Reform, with their cheap right-wing, racist, populist pitch, have an audience in Britain amongst working class people. We have to contest it. We have to argue with the people who might be drawn to them that this is a very dangerous path to go down. The social peace of the country is at risk from this. I picked up a leaflet, it's in my coat actually, I'll show you it later, at Dumfries Station this morning. Dumfries, a small Scottish town where there's hardly, my family are the only Asians in the village, right? And there was a leaflet at the railway station. No imprint, no name, but pure racist propaganda, expensively produced, seeking to turn parts of our country against other parts of our country. Reform thrives on that, and Reform is a big danger to Britain. But it's heavily dependent on Farage, and as poor Alex Hammond showed just 2 nights ago, the lives of human beings can be out like a light, and his party will presumably never recover from it, and Reform would never recover from the demise of Nigel Farage. Now Farage is healthier and younger than Salmond, but you see my point. Reform is heavily dependent on Farage. There is no 2 Nigel Farages. And that's a good thing. It's not like there's a big phalanx of Reform leaders that can be attractive to the British people. But here's the rub. That which is a danger to Britain is also a considerable benefit to us. If, as is said, and it's true, I can tell you from stepping into taxis, stepping out of taxis, going into cafes, that we are very, very popular amongst Britain's minority ethnic communities, particularly its Muslim communities. If we hold that allegiance, and Reform is eating Labour's white vote, then we will score victories in elections that we might not have expected to score. For example, there may be a by-election in Rochdale. We've made a very serious set of complaints about election fraud in the election in Rochdale. The police are investigating those allegations. I can't say any more about them, but if there was a by-election in Rochdale and I was able to hold the 12,000 people that voted for me, Labour would not be able to hold the 13,000 that voted for them, because Reform would take thousands of those votes. Now that Reform is on the up, now that Starmer is so unpopular, now that the local MP in Rochdale has turned out to be, well, I won't say what he's turned out to be, their vote would fall steeply. And that will happen in many places. So the political situation in Britain is in flux. Assuming the world survives the next few weeks and months, we need to start thinking not just about your next local elections and the next mayoral election, but you need to start thinking about the next general election. And that means you need to start picking candidates, identifying talent, setting up fighting groups to fight these elections, and you need to be improving every aspect of our operation, from communications to quality of material, to making more of you into public speakers. I'm only here on a Monday in London, don't count on me. You need to be able to handle meetings yourselves. You need to be able to make those meetings interesting and attractive to people so that they come to our ranks. And my last point is our ranks. Though this is a very healthy meeting, our membership needs to dramatically rise. There are many changes afoot. In March of next year, so 5 months from now, there will be a special Congress of the Workers' Party, which will change the operation and change the look of the party very considerably. For example, we have something like a 25-man-woman national membership council now. That's going to increase to 100.
Yes.
3 times bigger. 100 members that look like our membership, that look like our voting base, that are more reflective of the political and gender and ethnic character of this party. That 100 will meet every 2 months. They will elect from amongst their number 10 people for an inner group, a kind of Politburo, you might call it. We won't call it, but you might call it, which will be in permanent session, will be linked by Zoom and able and often actually having at least one meeting a week and maybe more. Whenever any issue is burning, then that 10-member inner group will be able to be recalled by me as the leader at any time. That means you need to start thinking about who you want on the new, much larger National Membership Council, which is the main decision body in the party in between congresses. Now, this Congress is going to take place much earlier than it was scheduled to do, because I wanted to make these changes. The next Congress may be 2 years, 3 years, 4 years away. So that 100 will be the Workers' Party leadership until the following Congress, which is indeterminate in time. That means you need to put a lot of thought into who you want on that National membership council, who you want from amongst your own ranks and who you want from amongst the ranks outside of London, because everyone will have a vote at the Congress on what that National Membership Council will be comprised of. That NMC will have the task of energizing the party, growing it, building it, but every member has a responsibility to do that. I know that not everyone can pay £1 a week for somebody else, but me and Hawes are. As a matter of fact, me and Hawes are paying £1 a week for lots of people. If you're one of those that could pay £1 a week for somebody else, that would like to be in the party but can't be because they can't afford it, then think about that and let us know. That's one obvious way that we can grow the party. For example, I don't know if she's here, there was a lady in a wheelchair. I saw her several times in a Motability scooter in your by-election. She would very much like to have joined the party, but she couldn't afford it. Well, now she's in the party because somebody's paying for her membership fee. Think about that. Think about whether other members of your family. I mean, if every one of you, and I very much hope, and if I can do anything to help, let me know. I hope every one of you has got a husband or a wife. If you do, why not recruit them to the party also? Why not recruit your brother, your sister, your workmate, your children over the age of 16? We have a lot of young members. It'd be good if we had a young member section that was viable and could meet away from us so that they could talk about the things that interested them specifically. So that, if I may, is my opening remarks. I'm more than happy to deal with any issue that anybody else would like to raise. But thanks again for listening. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, George. I'm Sam Habib, the Secretary of London for the Workers' Party. I've took the heat today. A lot of people have criticized our performance over the last few months, but I take the responsibility as the Secretary of London. And we are in the process of building the party in London. Frankly, when Hassan and I took over, we didn't have much of a structure. This is a new party. London is unlike the North, Birmingham. It's a totally different demographic to some degree. So the strategy is totally different to what people think. We're doing our best to put a structure, including the communication that we talked about today. But addressing Ealing before, maybe our strategy was different from Hawes, and I mentioned it. We wanted to be there, even if it's like at least a paper candidate, and that's the strategy. We wanted to be present because we gained some foothold in the last parliamentary election. So we thought about putting in 3 candidates, and we didn't do well, but I think Northolt, Mendavale relatively was, I mean, we did well, but we didn't do much of campaigning. But this is a lesson for us in the future, and we'll be consulting Hawes for the election committee into this. But I am firmly one of those who believe that putting paper candidate is a good strategy. Even we saw reform in the last parliamentary elections, they literally put paper candidates everywhere. So that's a strategy for visibility, to be mentioned, to be there. People recognize you even if you don't do well. And we're not expecting to do well in every single seat or a local election being held across the country. But for the next few months, our strategy would be to build the party in London, to prepare for the local elections on the short term, and also to build for the general election on the long term. We are having some sort of independent strategy from the mother party, the HQ website. We're having our own website. It's a localized website that will be targeting all the wards across London, reaching to people, and try to recruit people on local level, and that's what we miss now. Our membership is small, unlike the other parties. We don't have much of resources, so the only way to break this blackout and the media blackout that is being imposed on us is to use alternative media outlets and platforms, whatever possible means. We have a good strategy that would work out, and I expect in a year and a half time we'll grow the membership substantially. I don't want to put a figure, but I think we have the know-how, we've got the experience, we got some resources, we will be working out something, and I think we will do well. Ihsan will tell you more about the fundraising initiatives and the political events. I'll pass to him in a bit. We're also planning a media and communication strategy and also a system of manual and auto communication with all the members to involve them. We have almost 500 members across London now. We need, as I said earlier, to grow this number of members, and then we'll have a process to engage regularly with our members. And as I said, the strategy of reaching to the people across London is aimed at getting more people to be involved, and then having the candidates for the local elections and then the parliamentary elections later on. I admit, I was not part of the election process, but I know there are some issues even in picking candidates. We picked some wrong candidates in the parliamentary election. I was not part of this. We saw the criticism that we had from the corporate media on people's profiles. We have to have our own due diligence. Dino would be in charge of this. We discussed this. Anyone applying to be a candidate must go through a due diligence process about their own social media, what they've said in the past, because we can't stand any embarrassment for the party. We will be very strict on the standard and the criteria in selecting candidates. So this is in a brief in terms of our strategy. The executive is going to meet next week to discuss a detailed plan for the next few months and years to ensure that the party is doing the right thing. I'll hand over to Ihsan to tell us more about the political events and the fundraising events that he's planning, because we need to grow our financial resources in London as well. We discussed this. We plan some fundraising dinners in the near future as a means to grow our financial resources. Yes,
thank you. So the core direction to which I would like to speak about is membership. I had the privilege of helping, assisting along with our friends here with Hoz's campaign 3 or 4 weeks ago, and sadly we didn't get the result that we needed or we were hoping for. But although there was a terribly low turnout, we only lost by 150 votes to Labour. But moving on, with reference to membership, all the roads.
That's not, it wasn't 150.
It was 350.
My apologies, sorry.
350.
My bad.
Still low.
But they had a 250 head start.
My apologies, sorry. But anyways, my focus was pretty much on the membership thing. I have been working, me and my friends, we've been working on two plans moving forward. One is that I have spoken to yourself about, is the legacy program. But the other is something that I haven't shared with everybody, and I'd like your feedback and perhaps any responses to that. Before we go ahead, I just want to say I have sought legal counsel with specialist barristers that practice in this niche of law. There is nothing untoward, there's nothing illegal, it's all within the constraints of the law, so we're all good there. I also I invited a friend of mine who was the regional, the country head for a company called, well, I won't mention the name company, but they were in barter. They were in the business of barter. Now, I would like to propose to us all here that we add a tool to our existing membership structure. Not that we got the existing membership structure, how we bring people in, but just to add something in as a supplementary. We, at this stage, have proposed that we call it the Workers' Party Co-op. Now, what that would do is that obviously we would focus on promoting more and more members in let's start from London, and then hopefully we could span out on a national basis. But also that we reach out to businesses people that are offering services. They're offering whether it's tertiary, whether it's primary, whether it's a butcher, whether it's a greengrocer, it's a solicitor or accountant, what have you. Is that we can rack in people like this to join our ranks as partners to this Workers' Party co-op, that they offer incentives to the existing Workers' Party members and also to prospective Workers' Party members. I think it's a winner, and the people that we've been speaking to, I personally feel that it's a doable program. And the fact that we already have an existing infrastructure throughout the nation where we've got strong social media presence, and of course with our leader George Galloway, he's reach nationwide. If we can reach out to traders and businesses and people of all walks of life that offer a service, and bring them on as partners to this Workers' Party co-op, there will be three huge benefits that this would that the Workers' Party would benefit from. So, firstly, if you're a subscribing member and you're paying £5 a month, at this stage, sadly, because we don't have enough power, and as compared to Labour and compared to all the others, that we can't give an incentive or anything else for that matter to the people that are subscribing to us. The only thing that they have is that they're paying us, they're giving revenue. But what would happen here is that people would benefit if, for instance, if they walk into a shop that is a Workers' Party member partner, that they would get an incentive, they would get a discount for what they buy. The partner would be incentivizing that they would get business otherwise that they wouldn't get. But most importantly, and this is what I personally learnt, is that when we were going out canvassing, is our exposure would be tenfold. If there was, for instance, a shop on the high street that says Workers' Party and it's got the logo here, Workers' Party Welcome, people of that area, of that ward, would see that sticker once, twice, thrice a day. Every day of the year they walk past that road. And that is what we need eventually, for short, medium and long term. Now, myself and, if I could point out Nizam, our friend, I can say that if you look at our CVs, we have a track record where we have developed businesses. And this gentleman that I spoke to, who I will speak to yourself and Hosn the leadership in detail about, is that this man was single-handedly responsible for developing a network like this, which involved loyalty cards and reward cards. But we can actually, we can put that model and attach it to the Workers' Party. And we can win all ways. There's no way that this would be detrimental to our current position. I could suggest that we could start this in a pilot, in a particular zone, perhaps from where I am, the London Borough Council, and then hopefully, if everything goes well, we could expand it. And using our current infrastructure, both the social media and our stretch throughout the UK, we can duplicate that model, and eventually, now a year's time, when when the local council elections happen, and God willing, when the general elections happen, we will land running. We will be land running. So we will have enough exposure. But most importantly, and I won't give a figure like yourself, Sammy, because it's probably not a good idea, but I can assure you that where we are right now with reference to the membership, I can promise you within 12 months, we can go 10-folds in membership. I mean, just in my area alone, Hounslow, I could bring in 500-600 businesses that'd be happy to offer incentives to anybody that is a Workers' Party member. I'll start from the front. Our care homes, our hotels, solicitor firms, accountants, we would offer, if somebody walks in with a Workers' Party card, we'd offer them incentives. But this is all up here, and obviously none of this would happen without the consent and the blessings of the party. But I would like to put myself forward, and I'm sure that yourself, Nizam, is a great entrepreneur who we all look up to, that you would second that.
May I comment on it? I think it's a very, very good idea. I'd lose the word party. I'd say workers' co-op. That has a ring to it. Started in Rochdale. That's where the co-op was born. No one could stop us from using that title. And people would be more likely to put the sticker in their window if it didn't have the word party in it. Workers' co-op. And they're saying, if you come along with a Workers' Party card, you'll get X% off the goods and services that we are purchasing. Very, very good idea, as is your legacy idea, especially with the results of the cold snap still to come. Get your will altered to make a small bequest to the Workers' Party. You'd be amazed how that adds up. These are all good ideas. If I may reflect on something Sammy said, I was making no criticism of Sammy at all when talking about Ealing. But actually the demography of London is different from the demography of the rest of the country in that it is much, much better for us. London is a city where the minorities are the majority. And if we are the party of the minorities, with substantial support amongst the minorities, we should be doing really well. So for example, I saw Halima come in. If there was a by-election in a ward in Halima's constituency in East London, we'd be right in on that. I'd hope that Halima would be the candidate, and I'd back her to win. We have enormous support, latent support and active support in most of the minority communities in London. So actually London should be our strongest area, not our weakest. Up north is where we're strongest, and London where we're weaker. But it's within your grasp, I believe, of transforming that situation completely. And the reason why I gave you my blessing for your idea of Workers' Party Friends of Bangladesh, your idea, Workers' Party Friends of Pakistan, Workers' Party Friends of Jamaica, Workers' Party Friends of Iraq, Friends of the NHS, Friends of the Railway, and these ideas are outstanding ideas. If you hold a fundraising dinner of Workers' Party Friends of Palestine, you'll get a lot of people coming to it who are not currently in the Workers' Party, but they are supporters of Palestine, and we'll get them into the Workers' Party through that portal. Ditto Bangladesh. If we can, you could hold a dinner, given all the restaurants you own nearly every restaurant in Britain. We can have in a big Bengali restaurant a fundraising dinner, the Workers' Party Friends of Bangladesh, and so on. These are imaginative, and all these ideas came from this table, this top table. None of them are mine, but we must do them. We should do them, and we'll raise substantial funds. And the more funds that we raise, the more activity we can generate, and the more members we'll get. And the more members we get, the more membership income we will get. You should be aiming, I appreciate Sammy not putting a number on it, but you should be raising to have a full-time organizer in London, paid for by yourselves. That's by no means out with your grasp. You should have a target of raising £20,000 or 25, London waiting allowance, £25,000, and you'll get 10 young whippersnappers biting your hands off for that job of the London organizer of the Workers' Party. And you can do that. These fundraising ideas you're talking about now would pay for that. And that would considerably improve the efficiency of your political work. Anybody else?
Do you know what it is?
Yes, ma'am.
I wanted to say, so I like the idea with the company stuff and getting them to be partners, but to me it feels like these companies have a relationship with the Workers' Party, and I think it might be better in order to draw people in as well as personal promotion for the companies if they had some sort of community outreach. So, for example, like a butcher's shop might help out some way or another within the community, and that is facilitated or promoted by the Workers' Party, so that specific butchers, A, within the community, and B, more wider social demographics, has some sort of like
Incentive?
yeah. So it's
I
does that make sense?
no. I know you're absolutely right. And as mentioned earlier, I don't think any relationship is sustainable until and unless every party in that relationship finds an incentive.
Yeah.
And in this case, if we were, and I'm getting more momentum now. Thank you, Brother George. I think I've got some support from the top end. Is that if let's say a couple of people that help us on our end. So me and Nizam, geographically, we're in the same part.
Same area.
Yeah.
We've got lots of people that are going to be picking up phone calls and saying, listen, you have a biryani shop where you're spending £3 a month, £3 per plate. I know it's a bit of a thing, but do you know what? 10 pence of that has to go to the Workers' Party. That's your contribution to the cause. Because a lot of people, hopefully God willing, when they do join the Workers' Party, or the Workers' Co-op as partners, is that they're doing it simply because they want to help the Workers' Party. Now, the incentive is that they will be getting business which they otherwise won't be getting. Mm-hmm. So I've spoken to an Islamic funeral parlour, a funeral company in Shepherd's Bush. Mm. And I said to them, listen guys, I haven't run this through with...
Make sure they've written a will.
Oh yes, no, of course, no. By the way, my law firm, we're the first people to sign up to this. We've got an accountant company, we've got a couple of law. But there's this funeral. They immediately said that they were in the position to raise the discount because of the markup that they usually earn. So their incentive was that number one, that they're doing their bit, that they're proud, that's it. But also that they are getting business which they otherwise wouldn't have got. And as Brother George said, this was relating to the legacy thing. And if with your permission, I'm going to spend 2 minutes to explain that to the people that are unversed in this. Is that with the legacy, this is a decades old, a century old concept which Conservatives and Labour and Lib Dems in this country are using. Is that if you look at the demographics, most of our voting population are the elder population, and they take it upon themselves to put it in their will that in the event of their death, they would like to give 5%, 2%, 1% of whatever's net to the party that their allegiance is to. And if I give you the figures of Conservatives in 2017, please don't quote me on this, but it was £2 million. With people that had actually passed away that year. Now, I wish everybody all the best and a long life, etc. But the death is a fact of life, and that's what we're working on in terms of legacy. And hopefully, a couple of weeks' time, I'll be presenting that to Sammy and the leadership, etc. But in answering your question, the beautiful thing, especially if you go to East London, from where our friend Halima is, where I am originally from, and from all these areas. Everybody's an entrepreneur. Most of our voters are entrepreneurs. And they wouldn't bat an eyelid by saying, do you know what, if this 10% is going to Mr. Galloway, our brother Galloway, they won't bat an eye. And this is what we're tapping into, and I can promise you it's amazing. But what I felt was, and I'll take this into my stride, that we won't be calling it a Workers' Party Co-op, because you're quite right, it sounds good. But with your permission, we'd like to have the logo on there.
Well, the logo must be.
Right.
Yeah.
So just imagine is that our children, our teenage nephews and nieces, when they walk past and they see that logo, it doesn't mean nothing to them, but subliminally they're digesting it. So I knew Labour because I saw that big fat rose as a kid, etc. Not that
Now a weed.
it's got thorns in it now, lots of thorns. But we want to build up on the medium to short term subliminal.
Yeah, what I'm saying about that is because when I heard legacy, I'm from Tower Hamlets, right? And a lot of the population there is first-gen immigrants.
Yeah.
And so, if you wanna make an area like that a stronghold, you need to show that you are for the community.
Correct.
And by helping out these businesses, it's great. But if there is no olive branch, so to speak, towards the community, where you do have a lot of children who are going to school hungry, or you do have a lot of mental health crises going on, and the system is overwhelmed, or stuff like that, it doesn't really mean much.
Well, look, I understand what you're saying, and there are ways that we could use a part of whatever we earn to ourselves do social outreach, which will directly benefit us. But we're not a charity, and we can't substitute for charities. We can't substitute for public bodies, local government bodies, and the rest. We have one primary task, which is to build the Workers' Party so that it can serve the people. Our ultimate reason for being is to serve the people. But we can't do that until we're much bigger and much stronger and winning elections. So these ideas in the first instance must be to build the party's strength. And then, no reason, for example, why we can't have a workers' picnic in the summer to which we bus people from all over. There's no reason why we can't do that kind of outreach work. But it would become too complex for your workers' co-ops to be asking the business not just to give the discount to our members, but to give a part of the profits to the local community and so on. That would put companies off doing it. The first task is to get them signed up, and I see very well that they would do so. All they've got to do is put a logo in their window, a small sticker, Workers' Co-op, and if any of our members are going by, and we want to buy 20 cigarettes, if anyone can still afford cigarettes,
Filthy habit.
then you'll go into that shop rather than another, partly because you'll get a discount, but partly because you'll be building the Workers' Co-op movement. I think it's a terrific idea. Yes, brother.
I'm a little perturbed by some of the discussion here. I think there's too much emphasis on elections. Had we won, had George won, had Craig Murray won, had a few other people won, and it was a real touch and go, I admit, the whole situation would be different. But given the fact we didn't win the elections, and even George didn't win, we're in a totally different situation. And I don't think the strategy of gradually chipping away through local elections is going to be a viable strategy. It's perfectly good to do, but I don't think it's a viable strategy. The weakness in the anti-Israel movement or the pro-Palestinian movement is that it's led by donkeys. It's led by donkeys. The people who lead the pro-Palestinian movement in Britain are useless, and they've been useless for decades. And it is them that is holding back the anger of the people about what's happening in Israel. And they march people like the Duke of York from A to B and A to B and B to C and A to B, and they don't even allow Galloway or Loki or any of the prominent real militant activists against Israel to get up and speak. And there are young people who are aware of the sabotage by the leadership of John Rees and Lindsay German and people like that, and yet they're given no alternative. And the problem we've got in the Workers' Party is that there is no mass youth base that we are tapping into. We're not talking about going to the university, to the schools, getting a mass base amongst them that could mobilise people and create a movement outside of Parliament, focused primarily as a starting point around the Palestine issue, that then is able to mobilise a movement, able to bring about electoral victories. But first you need the external, extra parliamentary movement to do that. And one way you could do that with the existing people we've got, which is not a youth base, is to make every member, train every member to be a citizen journalist to report on their community and their lives, which would connect in with why, for example, just quickly, just finish, why, for example, or a focus that we also need to take on, which is the big rise in support for Tommy Robinson and his supporters. And we have the capacity to mobilise the communities that are most affected by that type of psychology that's manipulating a layer of the population. And we could split that Tommy Robinson support base, provided we do a show of strength and not this hysterical campaign which is being run by people like Jeremy Corbyn and others who are just going, welcome every immigrant in the world, and that's the way to deal with the Tommy Robinson Brigade. It's not. And my concern about the emphasis about small business and stuff like that, the Workers' Party should be a workers' party. If it's to replace the Labour Party, it must be solidly rooted in the working class. That should be the main focus, and the youth.
On that last point, we regard small businesses as workers.
Fine.
We believe...
yes, I'm a small business myself.
Yeah, we believe that everybody who works is a worker. And small business people definitely work. In fact, many of them work harder than the rest of us. They have certainly more responsibility as well as work than the rest of us. Those that, for example, work in local government have a far easier work day than the guy who runs a butcher. Because he's not just got to run the butcher, he's got to make sure it doesn't go out of business. First of all, I welcome the inherent militancy in your contribution. It's really important. It's absolutely correct. The fear of amongst minority communities about the Robinsons and the rest is a real fear. But the answer to it is not to, as you say, put up signs saying, please, can all of Bangladesh move to Britain as quickly as possible? That liberal, I call it a liberal approach to the immigration issue is not ours. It is the province of other liberal leftist groups, but not ours. The point that you make about the Palestine movement, I entirely concur with. I 100% agree that the leadership of not just the Palestine campaign, but the anti-war movement, so-called, in general, we are all being very badly let down. And it's not just me that's banned. I have not spoken at a Palestine demonstration for more than 10 years. And I don't go on them because it will cause problems. It caused problems in Birmingham, if you recall. We had all kinds of people demanding that I be put on the platform, and it becomes a distraction from the issue, and we ultimately can get blamed for that. So I don't go on the demonstrations because I'm banned from speaking at them. But so is Loki, imagine. So is Chris Williamson, imagine. We are all banned because a tiny group of, let's call it what it is, a tiny group of Trotskyists of various hues, the workers this, the revolutionary that, they run the Cuba Solidarity Campaign, they run the Stop the War Coalition, they run the Palestine Solidarity Campaign, and they're all the same people. And they have effectively blackballed anybody, for example, who will be viscerally anti-Labour. They ban anybody who will demand one Palestinian state from the river to the sea. They ban anyone who will demand boycott. They're against the boycott because it leads to accusations of anti-Semitism, they say, and so on. So I'm entirely with you on that. How to tackle it, I'm not sure. If you tackle it the wrong way, you will weaken the movement for Palestine, and you'll be blamed for it. A double whammy, if ever I saw it. So I have been largely just staying away from it and staying silent and hoping for a change in the leadership. They're all getting quite old, and they may be supplanted at some point. I thought you were going to say, I'm glad you didn't, that we should all join these organizations and take them over. But there's no democracy in these organizations. You cannot take them over. You can't join the Stop the War Coalition and elect a better leadership. That's not structurally possible. Ditto the Palestine Solidarity. If you made any moves, they'd expel you.
Sorry, if you were to go to the demonstration, walk through the demonstration, you'd be applauded right the way through the demonstration. And then you could march to the front and then people say, let George speak. What's the matter with that?
Well, that is one approach. And we did, in a way, try that in Birmingham. We didn't get on the platform, but there was a great deal of division in the crowd over this. One of the great ironies is I was blackballed by both organizations because I denounced the fake sex allegations against Julian Assange.
Yes.
The people who blackballed me for that are now the leaders of the Free Julian Assange campaign. I saw Jeremy Corbyn the other day with Julian Assange. I didn't, because it would be wrong, but I thought about saying, did you tell Julian that you stood up in the House of Commons and demanded Julian's extradition to Sweden to face these fake sex allegations? Because that's what happened. He stood at the front bench and demanded that Julian be extradited to Sweden to face what turned out to be, as I said they were at the time, fake allegations of rape. But I'm sure he didn't tell Julian about that, and you'll be hoping that Julian missed that news when he was in prison at the time. So you raise important issues. Let's think about them. Let's discuss them further. Pause.
In reply to your question, and it's only a very short part of it that George has not mentioned, but if I remind George, he will remember. We had a meeting at the NMC, and at the NMC we had a person called either Owais Malik or his brother.
Owais, yeah.
It was Owais Malik who came up. He's a doctor and a dentist, and he's doing exactly what you're saying. We're organising a Workers' Party union at pretty much every university that we can. He's going to do that for us. So that's something that is a part of our plans in the near future, to have the Workers' Party union, or the much like you've got the Friends of Pakistan and whatever else unions, you've got student unions on these campuses. There will definitely be a Workers' Party union, and I'm not going to add any more than that because there isn't more than that.
Well, I have something to add to it, if I may, and I apologise I didn't reply to that part of your contribution. We have a problem in universities because we are not signed up to the LGBTQ plus agenda. We will be banned from certain universities, from meetings, from the reason I no longer speak at universities is because if I got one today from King's College, if I accepted it, the LGBTQ plus lobby would immediately demand that I be excluded from the university because I was making it not a safe place for LGBTQ plus people. Ditto the Zionist students would say I was making it not a safe place for Jewish students. This is all bollocks, of course, but it's a well-tried and practiced tactic. And so we hope to get into the universities via the young man that Hawes just talked about, little by little, establishing in the first instance low profile, not me showing up on the campus, but them organically growing a student presence for us, because you quite correctly identified a lack of a youth base for us, and we're going to have to address that.
Comrades, if I can come in,
No,
because
just what Aaron wanted to
you,
say.
so you called me earlier.
Yeah, yeah,
and I
but,
was,
okay, Dino and then
Comrade, I'm sorry, I don't know your name.
Heiko.
But what I would like to appeal to is to everybody here to start to mobilise and get involved with our No to NATO organisation. I personally see it as an alternative to stop the war. We might not be as big, but we can command very, very important personalities that have international prestige, such as our leader George, such as Low Key, and many others. I appeal to all of you to make sure that you become members of that organisation and get as many people involved as possible. We're trying to raise money to recruit a full-time organiser for No to NATO, and that I see as part of our future, as along with MOTS, which is the only place that you can actually see what's going on around the world in a crystallised, compact way, presented by George and all the guest speakers, which have the best prestige in the world. I mean, if these people were leaders, we wouldn't be in the situation that we find ourselves in now. The other thing, and I'll be very brief, is that in terms of what I tried to push at our AGM was post-election, we have an obligation, a moral duty, to be in touch with the people who voted for us. And that's something that I would like the leadership to discuss, because it wasn't accepted at the AGM, to my shock. We have a moral responsibility, because those are our potential members, those are our potential supporters. And they can be ordinary working people, they can be in businesses who are workers as well. But we need to be in touch with those people. We mustn't forget, I run into someone on Friday who supported my campaign. I only knew 10 of the voters who voted for me. I only knew 10, and 766 voted. They were voting for Comrade George, they were voting for the Workers' Party. We don't know them. We need to have local events where we stood candidates and try to bring the people there so that we can get to know them. This is something that I would like to see the leadership work on, but I would like to have your support for this.
Yeah.
Right. The sister at the back.
Hello, I've just got a couple of questions, okay? After the election, I was one of the candidates. Hello, my name is Denise. I was a candidate in Enfield, and I was asked to send back some feedback forms. Nothing ever came of it, so I'd like to know what happened to that. This is the first meeting I've ever been to, as well, where there's people, here. And I think, why can't we also do something like this on Zoom? Because I think you'll probably get more people to attend if they have a link, as opposed to trek, half the way across London. The other thing is there any way you can have an introductory offer? So for argument's sake, you have a QR code, you scan the code, you might get membership for 1 year for a reduced price. And then you have the, I think like an auto renew, or something of that effect, which allows you then to keep that person as a member. And I think we have to also consider questions around, I'm not saying you don't need to address questions outside, but as a unit, we need to have camaraderie. We should be meeting on a regular basis. I really think that you guys should have done something for all of the candidates and said to us, well done, thank you, because we all put our own money in it. And there wasn't even a packet of crisps for nobody. And I think that's not how you build relationships, yeah? You have to keep people in touch. You need to, communicate and provide forums. I had an opportunity at my local community. They had a pop-up market. I got in touch with the membership. I said, look, they've got a pop-up market there. It's pure youngsters there. They've got a DJ. Can I have a store and a stand? There was nothing. So I think what I'm trying to say is that we need to, I've come from
a structured party environment. So I never had to, as a candidate previously, to do any of the what I call infrastructure work in the constituency, and that's what we need. We need infrastructure, and we need people to be involved in that. So I would say if you could just consider some of those things, and I don't see why we're not coming back here at Christmas if people, celebrate Christmas. We should be getting together. It shouldn't be that you have someone have an election and they don't know anybody, and you've got 5 people turning up. That's my 2 pence. And come to my show as well, I'm a broadcaster.
Well, let us know when your show is and we'll all be there. I think, Denise, it's important to properly take note of the fact that we are a very small organisation. We have almost no staff. And those staff that we have a mountain of work for a pittance of pay. So we don't yet have the infrastructure you've come from. Where was it, in the Labour Party?
Yeah, and
We don't yet have that infrastructure. They've got an infrastructure and bugger all else. We've got everything else, but not an infrastructure. We have to make sure we've got what we've got and an infrastructure. And my brother Sammy, the secretary, spoke about that earlier, and that can only improve. To coin a phrase, things can only get better, Denise. But yeah, you're right. There should be a meeting here for Christmas. Definitely.
If I could just add one thing, you're absolutely right. In fact, it's highly esteemed individuals like yourself who I would look up to council. I would like for your support and your experience, and hopefully, But the main reason why, for myself and Nizam and Sami, what we're focusing on, the membership and the revenue, is so that we can put ourselves, instill ourselves in that position where we can match that sort of environment that you came from. But definitely we'll exchange.
I just have one supplemental. What happened with, when we ran in the election, we needed to get a certain percentage of the vote so that we could then qualify for state funding. I think I saw yourself saying that we were successful. What's the impact of that now?
Nothing.
Going forward?
If we had one MP, we would now have £500,000 a year from the state. But we didn't get one MP. They made sure we didn't get one MP. We'll need to wait for another suitable.
We got the number of votes. We went past that, didn't we?
Oh, we needed 150. We got 210. Yes, brother at the back of the glasses.
Hi. So, okay, basically, why I think like people join the party, right? Because they share certain values, right? But I wonder, guys, how you want to retain people in the party if, there are some interesting things happens, like people are being expelled for because they just express their opinions, right? Without any explanations. And there are no proper democratic procedures.
No what?
Yeah, no democratic procedures. Yeah. How are you going to retain people? Where is Raj, who was the candidate? Who actually, who is quite old. He was a candidate, and he worked a lot in his consistency, and despite it was absolutely desperate. And this was like very weird story where he was expelled.
It's not weird.
Not weird? Okay.
If I may reply on Raj,
Yeah.
because I was the one who referred him to the party, because he brought the party to dispute.
No,
I can't imagine just a candidate.
In his absence.
No. I mean, this is
No, I'm just telling you, it's on a legal point. We can't talk about
It's
it.
okay,
think
but
there's
it's okay.
three
I was a secretary because I was involved in this.
Yeah.
He brought the party to dispute. I can't imagine a candidate doing his own campaign and swearing and speaking badly against his party, and that what he was doing in the illegal groups where I was member. He didn't do it the right way.
No, but with respect, just
why we didn't have open hearing? Like,
Well, we have a structure, brother.
There was a structure.
We have a structure, a disciplinary structure. He was given a warning. He disregarded the warning. He cursed everyone, from me to Sammy to everyone. He cursed them publicly.
And in terms of
on public forums, and we can't have it. So under our actual structure, he was expelled. And you can't reopen that question now.
And
I'm sorry.
just one more thing, just for the unversed. Sorry, so can I just add one thing, please?
Yes.
Just for the unversed, the people that don't know who we're talking about here, I would be reluctant to talk about him behind his back, as I think it's disrespectful, despite what he's done. Despite what he's done about the party. Just bear with me. But if you compare us with the mainstream parties and their tolerance levels, I think we are extremely tolerant. The amount of time.
I can tell you honestly, like, okay, I've been in the party for a short time, and at that time when I was in the party, that was like, before, Stanley was elected, Corbin Steele was leader, right? I was on these couple meetings, and well, I did see some kind of party democracy there, right? It was like election discussions, people discussed openly. I haven't seen it here yet.
I was suspended for 6 years in the Labour
Sorry,
Party.
I just
With no
Who do you
democracy.
think elected, brother, who do you think elected them?
I was the
Well, Raj, you just got one vote that day. That's where you kicked off from, by the way.
Sorry, I think I'll interject on the Labour Party's governance and legal unit. So I was an officer, my job was to run the investigations and expel people. Unfortunately, people got expelled with just the press of a button without any right of reply, and that's on the basis of what their lobbies or external individuals or even MPs wanted. So I'd say we are in a far better place than what that Labour Party bureaucracy and investigations and their version of democracy actually look like.
There's nobody more better placed than her to speak with the
Let me just say to you, Michael, the procedure is very simple. You get a warning. We normally give a warning to a party member and say to them, please change your way. They're normally given a 6-month warning. We ask you to try and behave yourself for 6 months, okay? If they carry on and basically cause a problem, the actual warning is brought up at the NMC, where a vote takes place. So, for instance, Nadia Clock, Raj Gill, and I think it was Lizzie. We've only had 3 expulsions in our party.
3 in 5 years.
Okay, so it's not like we're expulsing people every day, and the procedure is simply, someone comes up on a warning, that warning is given to them privately, and then the NMC votes on that. Do we give them a warning based on this set of events and evidence? And that evidence is collected by the Assistant General Secretary of the party, Teddy Reynard. After that's done, if there's no further infringements, all we do is turn around and it's Teddy Reynard, the General Secretary, the Deputy General Secretary, who creates a piece of paper and says, at this date this was said, at this date this was said, at this date this was said. And all they do then is turn around and say, put it to the NMC to the vote. And then the NMC does the vote. So the thing you're asking about, there's no procedures, there is an absolute procedure, and that procedure was conducted in an absolutely fair way for 3 people. Okay, well, Michael, you may not be satisfied with that, but that's the way our party is done.
Yeah, I'm not going
to.
Let's move on.
I think we've had enough.
I'm not arguing with the decision.
Okay, but I'm chairing the meeting and I'm telling you we've had enough. We've got many other things to discuss and there are many other people indicated. I can't let you, just because you're standing up and you're told to speak all night. Yes, sir, with the hat.
George Galloway, pleasure speaking with you. Following you for years, but first time I'm seeing you. I was just listening to what the lady was saying about trying to get more people join the party, and also thinking back to the small business element of it. And I'm wondering whether there is anything that we can do as small businesses where we could, because we need to entice people. And I mean, I joined because I believed in the things that you were saying, the things that you were doing, the things that you've done, right? And I believe that something really, really wrong is going on over here, and some people need to really stand up and fight for it. But the reality is that, and I've spoken to a lot of people, my close friends, I've spoken to, trying to get them to, see the Workers' Party, join the Workers' Party, understand what the Workers' Party is doing. There seems to be a barrier, and they might even in theory agree with the logic behind what we're doing. But when it comes to taking that final step, like I did, join the Workers' Party, there seems to be some sort of a mental barrier, and that mental barrier is composed of a lot of different things, but it's inertia, and that's the way I see it anyway. My thoughts are, what can we do as a party to draw people in, as for each individual small business. Like for instance, I can go and talk to a pharmacy, I can go and talk to a cafe and say, hey guys, here's something over there. People will take a look at it and say, yeah, I'm interested in that, I'd like to pick it up and join. Because that's what we want, right? We want the numbers to increase. And initially, as following the theory of a growing business, it's not so much the initial joining fee that's important, it's about getting the numbers on board. Because once we've actually got that momentum, then people will just fall in and they won't question the fees or anything like that. So I'm wondering, is there anybody, have we done in the past, anyone thought, Oz, hi.
I'm going to reply to you if I may, George. We've got a plan put in place at the moment. Najam is, basically I'm the National Election Coordinator, he's my deputy, and he has got a plan that he's put in place that's actually going to be replying to Denise. Every single one of our parliamentary candidates is going to be approached. Every single one of them is going to be part of the future of the party, every single one of them. And trust me when I tell you that Najam is the person that's going to be able to drive membership, and I'm not worried about £5 fees. I'm actually just worried about people like Denise turn around and say, I want to be in this party because this is where my heart is.
Yeah.
And I promise you that Najam is the person that's going to drive that through. Okay? So with that one, just give us a bit more time, because he's only just been given that task by me to do this 4 days ago. We've been sitting talking about how we're going to grow membership, but Najam is going to be, he has the name and email and phone number of every single parliamentary candidate. There's 152 of them. He'll be reaching out to them to start with, and then we shall see who else he can drag into the dragnet that he's going to be creating to hopefully increase membership one way or another.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you. Yes, sir, in the middle.
I live in Harrow, and in the last election, Workers' Party had initially two candidates. One was withdrawn in favor of Pamela Fitzpatrick. God knows why he was withdrawn. And the other one did contest, and I've been trying to contact him ever since. I don't succeed. Now, I'm interested to find out who the other members are living in Harrow. 67% of Harrow's population is immigrant population. It's a great place to start Workers' Party group there. And I'm trying very hard. I understand the problems, but just trying to see if anybody can help me to let me know what the other...
I can't tell you who the other candidate was, but there are people here.
James Mertimer.
James Mertimer.
So it was Nadia Clock in Harrow West. Harrow East was James Mertimer.
Yeah.
What I would say...
That was Brent West and Brent East.
Oh, my apologies. In that case, it would have been...
Wasn't it Imtiaz?
Imtiaz was
Harrow
in
West
Hendon.
and Harrow East.
Harrow West, we didn't stand
Harrow
in
West was
one.
withdrawn.
We
That's my
withdrew
idea.
because
Yes,
it was Pamela Fitzpatrick.
that's what I want us to focus on, if I may. We won't be withdrawing for anybody else, anywhere else, anytime else. We were keen not to be the dog in the manger, not to be the wrecker that got in the way of worthy, they said they were worthy, independent candidates who they said had a better chance. In most cases, they did not. And we will not make that mistake again. I don't think it was a mistake, but we will not do that again. So wherever there is a parliamentary by-election, we'll be standing in it, and if it's the right kind of seat, I'll be the first candidate off the ranks. The attitude to elections is that elections are a time, here I refer to our brother at the front who's filming, elections are a time when people are thinking about politics, where you have an excuse to go up and speak to them, where you have an excuse to hand them a leaflet and knock on their door. Elections are important for that. They're not just important if you think you've got a chance of winning them. Sam is right. There's oftentimes a case for standing in an election just to make 10 new members. It doesn't cost you very much to fight a local election, and sometimes it's worth it just for that sake. But you've got to follow up. Dino is right that we had 210,000 votes, but who were they? How can we tell who they were? Unfortunately, it's a secret ballot, you'll never know exactly who the 210,000 were, but 210,000 is a hell of a lot of votes. It's the biggest vote that any socialist party has ever polled in the whole history of Britain. That is not nothing. That is actually something. And we did it in the teeth of a complete media blackout and the antipathy of these lobbies that I spoke about earlier, which are very powerful on the left of British politics. We're not particularly green. We're not particularly LGBTQ plus friendly, and all these things are inhibitors. But we can't change them because that's what we are. And many people vote for us because we are exactly that. Our attitude to net zero in 2030, for example, which we regard as a complete con that will beggar the working class, freeze them and beggar them. A lot of people on the left don't like that attitude. A lot of voters do like it and are increasingly going to like it when they're told to scrap their car, when they're told to scrap their boiler, when their living standards are severely punished by this mania of Miliband to transform Britain, which produces 1% of all emissions, 1%, to make us the world leader in impoverishing our own population, to reduce 1%, if it succeeds, to 0.75% or even 0.8%, depending on what figures you believe. So, but here I wanted to comment on this. It's up to you. If you want to set up a Harrow Workers' Party group, I'm certainly not going to stop you. My view, just a personal one, is that you're better making a flying squad of all our members in London, meeting regularly, getting bigger, and when we decide to go for something, all of us go there.
Yeah.
So, for example, when Hawes stood here, if this crowd had been in Hawes's election campaign, he might have won. You see me? You feel me? That, of course, London's a huge place. Denise trekked across the town to get here. No doubt it's an inhibiting factor. But until we've got 1,000 members in London, I would not be concentrating on building smaller local groups. I'd be concentrating on building the London region of the party, which can then act as a unit which will go where it's needed. There's a demonstration here, we're all going to it. There's an election there, we're all going to work in it. And I also agree with Denise on the issue of Zoom. It will not be possible for you to all get together physically in a room every day, every week, every month, but you can have a Zoom meeting every month, and there's no reason why you shouldn't. And Zoom meetings can be very effective. The No to NATO that Dino spoke about, these meetings are watched by hundreds of thousands of people, and they're just a Zoom meeting. Hundreds of thousands of people watch them. So it's a very powerful and important medium. It's new for most of the people here, and for me, we're used to all getting together in a room. And there's no doubt that there's a benefit in that. But you can't get in a room every month. But you can get a Zoom meeting every month. Yes?
I just want to make a quick point about what this gentleman said about local boroughs. Because the Harrow Road by-election we had here, half of Labour's vote was postal votes. So they had an unassailable lead to begin with. So most of these by-elections, particularly by-elections and local elections, you're talking about a 25% possibly turnout. So you're talking about a 2,000.
What was our turnout here? 11?
Well, it was low. It's 14 point something percent. I had a look at the Ealing ones. The poorest areas, South Acton, got 17%. I think Hanger Lane,
Hanger Hill, yeah.
Hanger Hill, which the Liberals
lived in.
one. I think that was in the mid-20s. But in this election, we were only 100 short in terms of people who voted on the day from Labour. I don't know how many postal votes the Green Party got, but I'm sure they beat us by about 60 votes. And it wouldn't surprise me if the majority of that 60 votes were postal votes. We won this election on the street, hands down. We put the fear of God into the Labour Party. You know, they were bringing people in from head office to... But I'm the chair of WECH and Suzanne here as the chief executive. We had our AGM last week, and we used the same system, proxy votes. A lot of people who didn't turn up at the AGM. So in terms of who got elected, half of the votes were people who didn't attend. It was in proxy votes. So it's very, very important for each borough. I know you might not have the resources to do it ward by ward, but to have a database, to start building up a database and start utilising these postal votes.
Yep.
The other point I wanted to make was, I know Heiko and myself, we came from the anti-lockdown movement, the anti-vaccine movement, from 2020 to 2022, and then all of a sudden Ukraine took over. But it was the same thing. We had self-appointed leaders at the top of that movement who we used to spend Saturdays going from Hyde Park to Downing Street, all these government buildings which are empty, and then everyone would drift off with a kind of empty feeling. And then it was in April 21, there was 1 million people marched from Hyde Park all the way down to Shepherd's Bush, right the way around the Green, and we marched straight into Westfield. And then there were people who just didn't know. You can imagine if you're sitting having a cup of coffee down Uxbridge Road and you see 1 million people walking towards you, and you've got no clue whatsoever what it's all about because there was a media blackout. Now there's a massive constituency, myself included. I didn't vote in the last election. I thought, well, there's no one to vote for. You know, you're giving your power away. But we need to be concentrating on the whole 15-minute city, social credit system, cashless society, 5G, the implications and the side effects of the vaccine. This is a massive constituency. Now, we spent a lot of time campaigning on the Harrow Road. Everyone in Muslim, they know. Everyone knows 9/11 was done by Israel. Everyone knows. And they said the Labour Party is two wings of the same bird. Everyone's aware of it. So the Muslim community, what my idea is to bring all the peoples together. Now you mentioned Tommy Robinson. Tommy Robinson, if anyone doesn't know, is an Israeli asset.
Yes.
The day after, you know, he's got his Israeli Defence Force t-shirts, as is, who's that one, Katie?
Hopkins.
Yes, exactly the same. They're placed in high profile positions to affect public opinion. Now he was spotted, he came in the week before the whole Southport incident, had a little march, caused a bit of trouble around Parliament, and then the next day he's in a £500 a night hotel in Cyprus, which they identified. So he's just waiting for instructions. Now he's coming over on the
This month, yeah.
26th of October, and I guarantee you there's going to be some incident in the following week. This is all building up to the Trump, you know, Trump's going to get in. He's the appointed one now. He's the most pro-Israel candidate they've got, and it's all going to kick off with Iran. So the idea is they're playing people off against each other, and they're laughing. So they're playing Muslim against Christian, black against white, young against old, men against women, the whole thing. So the whole thing is all the communities have to come together. You know, the Labour Party have taken the Muslim vote for granted. They've lost the white working class vote because they wouldn't address genuine concerns about mass immigration. This has gone on for 20 odd years, so everyone's left them to join Reform, or all the football boys have joined Tommy Robinson, you see? Now, we need to get black community, Muslim community, white community, everyone coming together. The only thing we've got in our power is numbers. So it's all about utilising the numbers, eventually getting critical mass. But we've got a tremendous opportunity here now because you've got a disenfranchised, motivated group of people who, myself included, we were going on these marches. In the end, we went on wildcat marches we thought we're not going on police-sanctioned marches to the centre of town, so we just went, right, we're going to South London and just addressing the people. And the feedback, there's nothing beats face-to-face dealing with people. But there's a real kind of cynicism now about the Labour Party. There's been no honeymoon period.
No.
There's no cool Britannia. Everyone's just saying, oh, well, you know. Yeah, well, that was the whole buzz, wasn't it? Noel Gallagher's partying down the street. Keir Starmer is a weak man. You know, can tell he's a weak man. There's a lot of stuff, rumours going around about him, Lord Ali and all the rest of it.
He likes his sausages.
Huh?
He likes his sausages.
He does, yes. But he's part of the club. I mean, they're all you know, I don't know if you know, I mean, we're part of the alternative media, you know, Telegram, this, that and the other. So we're used to things not being publicised on the BBC, but there's a lot of information goes out and it's a cesspit at the top. You know, I don't look at it in class terms anymore. I look at it in terms of elite and the rest of us. You know, it's the vanishing middle class now. This is the whole Klaus Schwab thing. You'll own nothing and you'll be happy, which is why you're going to see interest rates going up. Because they don't want people owning their own homes. You understand? So, just, I know I'm going on, but going back to that point, it's very, very important, considering there's such a low turnout in all these elections, to utilise...
Can I have one question, sir?
Yes,
no, I've nearly finished, mate.
No, you're not going to finish, sir.
You're next.
Just a moment. Just a moment. Please finish.
It's crucial to utilise this postal vote. Absolutely crucial. And if we can start off on a level playing field in terms of election, in terms of that, we can win on the street. I mean, the 2 weeks we turn. Hos will agree. So just to echo that.
Please. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Don't be
It's
cross.
my first time, sir.
Don't be cross.
It's finished or not?
Please. Ask him.
Go
ahead.
Go ahead.
My name is Mr. Javed, sir. A long time, by the grace of Allah, I know George Galloway, sir. No, it's my first time in this meeting. It's my son from before me, sir. Captain Ali Javed is a long time. He is very fond of Worker Party. My question are only one or two, simple. What is the policy and agenda? Same old thing for Kashmir, for Palestine, and for the refugees coming through the boats. I'm a captain of the shipping myself, sir. That's why I'm asking this question. That's my question only. Number two, what are the chances? He's a young captain, young coming. I was hearing all the seats, all the boroughs has been divided in Jammu. You've already selected the leaders of
No, we haven't selected anybody.
So where is there any chance he becomes a
Every
councillor
chance.
or he becomes a member of parliament?
Consider him in. We haven't chosen
We
any
go in every
candidate.
party, everywhere. We'll take him everywhere where he can become the member of parliament.
Yeah.
And he can express his will.
Yes, he is
I don't see my chance here, sir.
You are welcome.
Thank you so much. God bless you. Remember my name?
Our
I'm always
policy
here.
on Kashmir is the same as our policy on Palestine. We support the right of the people of Jammu and Kashmir to self-determination, and we support their struggle to obtain it. We have a different point of view to others on the issue of these boats, these dinghies. We believe, first of all, that if you want to stop the boats, you have to stop the wars. The wars are creating the mass movements of refugees who end up here. 1 million refugees have left Lebanon in the last 3 weeks. They're headed for Syria and then to Turkey. You don't have to be a genius to work out where they're ending up next. They're ending up in Europe, and they will seek to enter Britain by rubber dinghies and live in hotels at the taxpayer's expense, £80 per night, just for the hotel room, on top of the other small, very small benefits that they will be given. This is at a cost of tens of billions of pounds per year to the British taxpayer. And so we are not amongst those who say refugees welcome here. We say The refugees need to be able to go back to their own countries. And they can't go back to their own countries if you keep interfering in their countries, making wars in their countries. So we have a different viewpoint to the liberal left on this question. Having said that, everybody in this island has basic rights, and we will support those basic rights for everybody, because to do otherwise is to give free rein to the likes of Robinson, because there's a lot of people in here to whom Robinson thinks you're all refugees, even if you were born here. Your son, they think he's a refugee. They think he came across on a dinghy, even though he was born here and he's British. They think Jude Bellingham is a refugee. They think Sterling is a refugee. They think anybody of colour is a refugee. And they want to express their racist hatred against everybody of colour. Refugees just a peg for them to hang their coat on, and their coat is a very ugly one. So we stand completely against all racism. We say refugees should be helped. For example, the Syrian refugees should be going back to Syria now. Syria needs them. It needs them to rebuild their country. There's nothing left wing about saying we want 1 million Syrians to be living here. Ditto Ukrainians. There's 500,000 Ukrainian refugees in Ireland, a country of 5 million people. Do the maths. This is a major, significant problem that is costing parties like Sinn Féin, who are on the liberal end of these things, heavily in the elections that are taking place in Ireland. We're determined not to be caught into that trap. There's nothing left-wing about mass immigration. Mass immigration beggars the country that they left and causes a difficulty in the country that they arrived in. So we are not in favour of mass immigration. We are not in favour of open borders. We're not in favour of everybody in the world being able to come and live in Britain, because we don't have enough jobs, we don't have enough houses, don't have enough schools, enough NHS places, and all the other things. And all that will cause is racism in those societies. It will turn people against each other. So we want a world where every country has the ability to thrive itself and to keep its sons and daughters in their own country without them having to cascade around the world. I speak as the grandson of immigrants. My grandparents arrived here in their bare feet from Ireland. It would have been better if they could have stayed in Ireland, because in their hearts and their heads, they stayed in Ireland anyway. They never spoke about anything else, sang about anything else, never drank to anything else. They were always Irish, but they had to be here because they couldn't live there. And that's the kind of world we want to change. That's our world view. Anyone who hasn't spoken yet?
There, please.
The lady in the sunglasses. Yes, ma'am, you. Yeah.
I'm so excited.
Yeah.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
My name is Patricia Umolu. I live locally, and
I love her.
I met Hos because he just knocked on my door just before the election. I can't remember exactly what he said, but what I do remember was Workers' Party of Great Britain, and I said, hey, and I grabbed his shirt and I said, yes, I've been looking for you, let's go.
Bravo.
And from then until now, I've given my support. I've looked online to find out more about the party. I've joined, and I I searched for any female candidates and supported them financially. So one thing I'd like to suggest, that it's very important, even though we are doing fundraising, we are trying to increase our membership base, we also need to support each other in whatever we're doing. I mean, with regard to campaigns and with regard to financial support of each and every candidate. I'm not saying you have to give everything you have, but if each of us just even gave just a fiver to selected candidates, it would go a long way, because the young lady here said she didn't even get a packet of crisps, but she wasn't coming out to be a candidate just because of either the money or what she's going to eat out of it. It's because of what she believes in the party, because of the policies that our brother Galloway is putting forward. Now, I've made a few notes, so what I'm going to say is just going to be very short, and it's just about suggestions on growing our membership, because I've listened carefully. Sorry I came late, but I've listened carefully to what has been said while I was here. So I'm just going to read it out, whether good or bad, that's me. Number one, setting up an ad hoc committee, which I think was touched on briefly, to co-opt volunteer members for structured activities. This is to do with growing our membership. Number two, leaflets and application forms in local businesses, together with, you know, the little logo or sticker in the door, so that either members could see it or people who are not members might see, you know, just a few leaflets with a form or with an online address, something they can apply for. Number three, online ads.
Online?
Online, yes.
Online what?
Adverts. Because I'm 68 on my next birthday.
What?
Yes. So anyway, on a more serious note, I'm both proud and ashamed to admit I spend a lot of my spare time on my phone playing word games. And in between the games, or in between whatever you're doing, you always have these online ads. And some of the ads are just unnecessary and toxic. So I don't see why we can't also have something not unnecessary and toxic, but have our own, adverts or something that would potentially, you know, lead people or entice people to find out more and think, oh yes, this is interesting. Because a lot of what we've discussed, a lot of the policies are really policies that they're like a tsunami. You know, if someone gets caught up in a tsunami, you can't help being carried along. And there are going to be certain things like I will say, the anti-Israel lobby. Though there's diplomatic ways to put it, there's, you know, ways around it, that someone might see it and think, this is interesting. And I think at the end of the day, if you're talking about whether immigrants, first generation, second generation, third generation, there's more of us than there is of them. So, sorry, I'm not trying to be horrible to anybody, but particularly in London, because London's a metropolitan city, and this is where everybody wants to go. I mean, I'm originally from Africa, so if I say to somebody, I'm going to Europe, they'll say, oh, you're going to London. They won't understand if I say Manchester or Bradford or Liverpool. They will say, she has gone to London. You know, so that's what I mean when I say, when I say, you know, London is a very metropolitan city. So number four, local radio stroke TV chat shows by knowledgeable, if we're saying increasing the database in London, knowledgeable London leaders, people who have taken time to get acquainted with the policies that our leader has, you know, been teaching us about, and they should be able to speak on our behalf, you know, to reach out to people. It doesn't necessarily cost a whole heap of money to get on a local TV show or to get on a local radio show. Number five, reach out to newly registered members, because obviously for now, becoming a member is an online thing, and if we don't know who our new members are, we can still find out by the online database of. Sorry?
I want to ask you a question.
Yes.
You joined the party about 3 or 4 weeks ago?
I can't remember when.
Okay.
but
Has anyone reached out to you
No.
from the party?
No.
Have you received any emails
I
from the
just
party?
received
Just your card?
Yeah,
Nothing
that's
else?
good, yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So that's a
with
big
the flyer
problem we've got.
inside it.
Carry on. Okay.
Right, you are now our candidate for wherever you want to stand.
Who's must stand out there?
We already know you are an outstanding recruit.
Oh, we spoke. Thank you. Okay. I'm sorry to take up time because I know time, is important.
Yeah, I want to try and
I'm sorry, I
finish
have
soon, yeah.
one more point that I wrote down. Database for online outreach can be called from the voting register to combat the challenge posed by the postal vote, which other parties are taking advantage of.
Well, on that last point, ma'am, Labour has been cheating the postal vote for the best part of 30 years or more, even. Number one, we don't want to cheat the postal vote, and number two, we're miles behind even if we wanted to. We can cry in the wilderness about abolishing postal voting on demand. I have been. Over the last 35 years, I have been publicly opposing postal voting on demand, but it's a forlorn hope because both of the major parties in the state profit mightily from postal votes. So if you can't beat them, join them. We'll have to turn as many of our voters into postal voters as we possibly can, because the turnout of postal voters, i.e. those that returned their postal vote marked in, is higher than the percentage of people who turn up on the day. And it was a very important reminder that we actually did really well here on the day, but we did really disastrously in the postal voting. Labour swept the boards in the postal voting, and they may or may not have done so fraudulently. Many of them have gone to jail for doing so fraudulently, but there's nothing much we can do about that. So we are mindful that we, first of all, have to sign our people up for postal votes. Secondly, we have to reach every person who does have a postal vote before they fill it in. That means a close knowledge of the postal voters list and enough people to go and knock on the doors of the people with postal votes, so that before they fill the vote in, they have had an encounter with us. And thirdly, we simply have to get the number of people voting on the day up. If I took more selfies in this ward than we got votes.
Yep.
It's official. More people posed for a picture with me at their request than voted for us. So we've got big support, but how to get them to the polls to vote is a big, big question.